All right, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome into episode 7, Kayfabe Kouncil, show where we review and critique news, topics, and segments in the world of professional wrestling. My name is PrettyTony, and alongside me is TFJ0ker. Joker, what's the crack?
Craig's 90 as always. Been a good week of wrestling and sports entertainment. So, been quite thoroughly enjoying it actually since the last time we spoke. It was a week of let's hope for some good wrestling, and we actually got what we hoped for.
Yeah, a lot happened this week. Specifically, stuff we'll get into. Large pay-per-view, which this past weekend, as well as big shows. And at the time of recording, there'll be another pay-per-view tonight, but as of the release of this, it'll be last night.
Yeah, I will definitely be going to bed before it comes out, so I will watch it tomorrow. But yeah, Money in the Bank is going to be going on tonight. What about yourself? Are you going to stay up to watch it? I know it's probably not as late for you that it airs, but
If anything, like I'll probably be working on stuff for this episode, but I might have it on in the background, and then potentially when I get a little bit of time, I'll probably watch the pay-per-view. So
you might not miss much. It's fine. It's only Money in the Bank.
yeah. Well, you've based on last week's episodes, again, we have our predictions out. So based on a programming piece, again, because these will come out day one-ish. These come out on early Sunday for most folks. So Money in the Bank is on a Saturday. So that is why we ended up doing the predictions last episode.
Have we figured out why this was on a Saturday? I don't remember it ever being on a Saturday like last year, unless I'm just really dumb.
So I think the long and short of it is, if I'm not mistaken, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Is this Money in the Bank is in Las Vegas? So this is supposed to be part of potentially International Fight Week, big part of in mixed martial arts. It's kind of like their sort of WrestleMania-ish week. So WWE wanted to get in on some of that sweet action, baby. So they ended up having it, I guess, on the week, and it kind of worked out. I guess originally the huge stadium was available on Saturday, and then they ended up switching the venue to the MGM Grand, if I'm not mistaken.
Cricket seals are bad.
Salute. But yeah, so I think that's why it was on Saturday specifically, to kind of get in on some of that festivities. So
yeah, that does make sense. I completely forgot about that whole fight week, and it makes more sense that it's not on a Sunday because they would get absolutely clapped if they were put up against anything else. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think in parlays to kind of what's going on locally in the Las Vegas area, and kind of, yeah, to get a sort of as much weekend foot traffic as possible Saturday makes more sense than Sunday.
True.
Cool. All right, so as we get into the episode proper, before we do, as a reminder, you can find us in video form at youtube.com/Kayfabe Kouncil and in audio form wherever you get your podcasts from. On this week's episode, we look at Blood and Guts, the double steel cage match featuring the Blackpool Combat Club and friends facing off against the Jericho Appreciation Society, and the AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling Forbidden Door thoughts and takeaways. But coming up first, Blood and Guts. So this has been obviously hyped for the last couple of weeks going in. We saw a little bit of the fallout happen through the Go Home episode of Dynamite and into the last portions of Forbidden Door. And then we saw it in the middle of a very, very hectic week for wrestling. So
yeah, it was I think hectic might be too nice of a word. Like, there was definite chaos going on this week, what with getting everybody sorted out for Forbidden Door, getting all getting the Go Home show completely sorted so that we had actual matches, and then even WWE sorting themselves out for Money in the Bank. So there was a lot of really random stuff crammed into this one week, which made the outcome of it all really really good. But Blood and Guts, just first and foremost, it is a very well named uh, situational. It's not a pay per view, but it's a situational event. I love it. It's just great.
I do like the notion of it because again, I'm actually kind of okay with AW having 4, maybe 5 pay-per-views sort of a
Yeah,
year. It's not overkill, but they do have sort of special big time episodes of Dynamite.
yeah.
And obviously Blood and
It
Guts
makes
being
those
one of
pay
them.
per views like a big deal. So whenever they happen, like they do a big blow off. They have these special matches, these marquee things that go on. Um, I do like you said, like the 4 to 5 pay per views a year that they run, as opposed to the every single month.
Yeah, it makes it feel a little bit more special and not kind of like ham-fisted in a sense. So as we get into the match proper here, we finish off with the introductions. We started off with Sammy Guevara and Claudio. Starting things off here, Claudio goes for a big giant swing, but Garcia comes in as the next entrance and cuts Claudio off. And then we end up having Yuta enter to even the odds, and he's crushed Garcia with the repeated Germans before doing the same to Sammy. And then we end up having Hager come in next for the JAS, and he took out Wheeler Yuta with a slam. And then here, the two big men, Claudio and Hager, took out the smaller opponents with throws and then faced off in the ring, a la a rematch from the 2014 Survivor Series kickoff show. Claudio got the upper hand, but the man advantage goes to Garcia, who got involved with the JS to take over. So huge, kind of hot start to this match.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the start was definitely leading to how it was going to go on. Um, with I wasn't expecting Claudio to be first, and it should he have been first, which he was. I wasn't expecting Sammy Guevara to be the one that he'd be going in against, but the pairing was really good. I liked the little bit of keep away that Sammy Guevara ended up doing, bouncing off the ropes, get away, do a wee bow. Not always a Sammy Guevara fan these days, but you know he's he does have the skill, and yeah, I think the whenever Danny Garcia came in and it went to the break, uh, there were chants from the crowd, "We want Wheeler." It's like either we want Wheeler or we want Yuta, whatever it was. I was just smiling from ear to ear because Wheeler Yuta then came in. I was just like, yes, this kid's just absolutely going nuts. Getting those slams in. He has prominent points throughout this match, which I really like. He wasn't just there because if you think about the name brand of practically everybody here, practically everyone in the match is a bigger deal than Wheeler Yuta, but you wouldn't have been able to tell because he more than held his own, and even got the "We Want Wheeler" chance. So, but yeah, whenever Jake Hager and Claudio Castagnoli, formerly Cesaro, met in that ring, locked eyes, there was chance of "We the People," and I kind of cringed a little bit, but it gave me a little bit of a smile too. But they did end up knocking seven shades of stuff out of each other, which was always good fun.
I do like it makes sense to me upon looking back at it that Claudio as well as Sammy kind of starting it off because both guys have really great cardio work. So if you're thinking about guys that can go the distance, now upon reflection, does make sense for them. Obviously Claudio can go. He can do a bunch of spots. He can kind of pace out potentially like a swing or his maybe like a UFO or kind of some of those big pieces. And then nice dynamic again having sort of a big Haas type guy and sort of a smaller, agile guy to kind of help start early and then kind of pace it through.
Yeah, definitely. Like now that you point that out, it is one of those things that you can't really do. You can't blow him up. Like you can't take away from the conditioning that he has. He is one hell of an athlete, and it does make sense that he was the one to start. Um, it was just the interesting pairing because I feel like Sami had those lulls a little bit more so than Claudio did. But let's face it, like it was just a really good pairing, and the way they worked the match coming up and who came in next, and I thought it was really really well orchestrated, and it led to a very very satisfying match overall.
Yeah. Let's go back to the match. Moxley comes in for his side, and he hits the X-Plex on Sami and then took out Garcia. Claudio bulldogs Hager onto a chair. Moxley produced a fork and carved up Garcia's forehead. Claudio beat down Guevara right in front of Tay Conti, and then Moxley and Yuta hit a heart attack on Garcia, who is gushing from a cut on his forehead.
Oh, Danny Garcia, like just the camera panned to him, and you just saw him spitting out his own blood. He was like 1,000 yard stare, kind of going, blood coming straight down his face. You're just like, oh damn, that's great. Like it's a great visual, but again, you're like, oh dear, he just got a gusher. Uh, Moxley introduced something to this match that the previous competitors didn't really not necessarily need, but they didn't necessarily expect it to come so rapidly, and that was chaos. Because he introduced a factor of violence that it was already pretty good. Like there was good wrestling going on. The violence was pretty tame. It was pretty down here. And then all of a sudden, Moxley comes in, and we're like, okay, there's wrestling going on, but it's actually violent. Um, and it was just so good, though. I don't know. I don't know what Moxley does to just his presence brings out the very violent tendencies, especially of Wheeler Yuta, which I really like to see.
Yeah, I think the aspect of Wheeler and John playing off of one another, obviously speaking to their history and kind of how things went about per se, I think it was kind of cool to kind of see them. Obviously, they're teammates within the Blackpool Combat Club, but then come together for something like a heart attack, and then we'll get into some spots later in the segment here. But yeah, I think it was a, sort of a nice touch, and again, the elevation of John coming in and then just sort of, all right, we're gonna kick it up a notch sort of rather quickly, and obviously it'll continue to escalate. But yeah, when you have a match per se named Blood and Guts, I think there's a little bit of an expectation from the fans to say, okay, there's going to be some things that are gonna go down.
Yeah, that little thing I was just saying, turn it up to 11. That is pretty much what Moxley does with the violence in this. He turns it right the way up to 11. And it was completely hysterical whenever you just look at him going and grabbing things and what he was doing to people, like the fork. Come on. And just digging in it. I think it was Daddy Magic's forehead, or was he in yet? I can't remember who he was stabbing, but he was stabbing somebody with the fork anyway, and you're just like, okay, Mox, calm down. Like we don't you're in this ring 2 seconds and you're already trying to just carve off somebody's forehead. But it was the JAS did an absolutely wonderful job of taking the punishment that was dished out by these boys. It really did feel like, even though the JAS had the advantage because they had the 2-on-1 advantage and the man advantage going forward, it still felt like there was really no danger. And this was a Blackpool Combat Club match the entire way through. There was no big spot that I can think of where I was like, oh, this actually might be close. It was always, no, BCC's got this.
As we see Angelo Parker coming in next for the JAS, but his opponents were firmly in control, and he just ran away until he finally got cornered. Claudio crushed him with a gut-wrench suplex. Finally, the other JS members recovered and attacked their opponents with weapons, with Hager smashing Claudio's ankle with a chair. Ortiz evened things up for his team and ran wild. Moxley hit a pile driver on Angelo Parker onto broken glass and then busted him open. And then Matt Menard entered the match and smashed his opponents with a chair. Moxley was then subsequently busted open.
Yeah, so just before Ange got into the ring, all of BCC had themselves a little partner, and they were all giving it beans with the hammer and anvil elbows, like they were just the camera panned over, and you just saw Moxley kind of slow down a bit and look across and go, "Oh, fresh meat." And everybody gets up. Ange comes in. He starts to get into that ring and then plays cat and mouse. And he did really well until the cameraman got in his way, and that's how he got hit by that gutbuster, or that gut wrench suplex, whatever it was. It was really, really good. Like there was nothing else he could do. But the glass, yeah, that because not only did he do the pile driver onto the glass, PT, he took a bit of the glass and started digging it into someone's forehead too. The crimson masks were flowing this day, but it was, I don't know. There's just something that was just still super good about this match. That even though the JAS, like I said, were on the brunt of all of this damage, this violence, they were still so good. Like they were able to get back into the match every so often, almost break the ankle of Claudio. Fair enough. Little spots here and there that were really good, but yeah, that glass that lives in my head now.
To your point, I do appreciate that it wasn't completely one-sided. Obviously, you spoke to the JAS having the man advantage in terms of entrance into the Blood and Guts match. But there were portions of when the Blackpool Combat Club side was kind of dominating, and then you had the JAS was then getting some spots. So there's a propensity if one side is sort of overbearing, it can be like a little too much and kind of like, okay. And then you almost kind of like feel for the guys, even if it's the bad guys who are getting beat up. You're like, man, I kind of want them. All right, let's cheer them. Let's go. People being beat up and being taken advantage. So yeah, but at least again, it was there was some parity, and at least even though now that, again, we spoke about earlier that the violence is sort of escalating bit by bit, it was a bit of back and forth, and it was not one-sided.
Yeah, and I feel like that was really lent to the fact that it was JAS that got the advantage. This was built for the Blackpool Combat Club being the ones to have the eventual lead going so far through the match. Um, and I feel like it definitely gave the JAS some staying power in the match. Otherwise, it would have become one of those where you were like, I kind of feel like the JAS might pull this one out, boys. But yeah, it was still really, really good.
We get a "We want tables" chant, and thankfully Santana obliged upon entering the match, in addition to bringing in a barbed wire baseball bat. Santana runs wild, but when he goes for a Uranagi on one of the JS members, he appears to hurt his leg legitimately. Moxley then grabs some skewers and stabs them in Menard's forehead, but Menard stopped that attack with a low blow. Yuta and then Garcia peppered each other with some stiff slaps.
Yeah. So I watched that bit back a couple of times with Santana. He came in, all guns blazing. It was really, really good. He brought the barbed wire bat in as well, and you're just like, all right, he's just going to go wild, going to go ham, start beating some folk up. And yeah, like whenever he went for the Uranagi, his left leg didn't kick out; it got caught. So he ended up going down on top of it, and it went in and it didn't go out. So he went in, the body went on top of his knee, he went on top of that, and he might have just popped something in his knee. Either way, he rolled out to the side. You could hear Eddie saying something. I couldn't quite make out what it was. But he rolled to the side and he was there for the rest of the match. Unfortunately, they couldn't get him out. Yeah, it was a little bit unfortunate to see Santana get injured so quickly into the match, but it was good that then people were made aware and didn't actually go after him or anything. But with the lull in the carnage, as it were, yeah, Wheeler Yuta and Danny Garcia, two guys that will be uh, fighting it out in years to come for the AEW title, just knocking seven shades of stuff out of each other in the middle of that ring, going hell for leather. It was great because the cheers they got. Like, these are two guys that are well on their way to absolute stardom, and these factions that they're in are helping that.
Yeah, it was off to a hot start when Santana came in again. Yeah, when he went for that Uranagi, it's just his left leg was either he, planted it wrong or just got stuck or whatever the case may be. But yeah, just kind of when I kind of saw it and he sort of rolled to the side of the cage and talked to the refs and everything, I almost thought a little bit about like Hunter back in 2001 when he planted his left leg and then just ripped the quad. So
Quad.
yeah, so you can definitely tell it was like, ooh. Normally when you hit a Uranagi, you're either gonna stand and sort of drop your opponent, or you can do like the rock bottom or the bookend and like fall
Kick
with
both
them.
legs out, fall with them. Yeah.
Either like plant on your knees or plant on your stomach with them. So it's usually something of that nature. But when I saw kind of one he kind of like went down to one knee essentially, I was like, ooh, there's something's rough. So yeah, that was a little disheartening. And then obviously he was off to the side. We hear later on after the match was finished that he ended up being kind of helped escorted to the back
Mm.
by the medical team. So we do hope that Santana is okay and that he can hopefully it's not a huge injury and he can get back soon as well. But yeah, to your point again, just Yuta and Garcia just going ham on each other and getting that reaction. I'll agree for sure. Obviously, with Wheeler being the Ring of Honor Pure Champion, and Danny Garcia being the PWG World Champion right now, them
Yep.
being showcased in AEW in these factions alongside bigger personalities and kind of bigger folks kind of sitting under those learning trees of guys like William Regal and guys like Jericho and being surrounded by the different characters and different guys. Yeah, it's definitely helping them for sure kind of hone their craft and get a little bit more well-rounded for sure.
Yep.
All right, we see now Jericho was his team's final entrant. He came in with Floyd the Bat. Ortiz immediately took him out with a DDT and choked him with a chair. And then we cut to a parade of big moves, concluded with Claudio running wild, but eventually Jericho cutting him off with a code breaker.
Yeah, Jericho coming in and just start swinging for the fences was really good to see, because I thought he was going to play the sort of coward esque, cowardly heel that might want to run away, stay away, and not try and get involved because he knows Eddie's coming in after him. Um, well, to his credit, he did come in. He started swinging the bat, took a couple of moves, and like you said, managed to cut Claudio off at the knees, as it were.
Yeah. Yeah, it was I do like the fact that sort of the whole precipice and kind of proponent of this whole matchup was Eddie and Chris,
Yeah,
with them kind of being just kind of spouting back and forth, and then they had the match essentially where Eddie won. He ended up tapping him out or submitting Chris. Chris would not shake his hand or show him respect, and then they're kind of going at each other. He ends up aligning with Blackpool. They're setting it up, type of thing. So again, remembering that this kind of started with Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho just not getting along, and then sort of grew from there. So again, it made sense that Chris came in, and then we will then subsequently see Eddie come in. So I do found it was important for that.
yeah, it's definitely one of those storylines that has come along and been more interesting. What could have been just a throwaway sort of side glancing story has kind of now encompassed, with the injury to CM Punk, has now encompassed the world title as well. With that being on Jon Moxley, so I can see these guys having an awful lot more to do with each other. Even though this section is done, the finale to this match definitely leaves it open to hot debate as to what way this is going to end up going.
Sure. We see the official start of the match occur when Kingston enters, and now unofficially, copyright trademark, we can't say that the match beyond begins, but now that Kingston is the last member of his team and all entrants are in, the match begins. Casually beats down the JS with kendo stick, a la the Darth Vader style.
Kingston just killing younglings here.
Swatting away, guys. Jericho tries to escape the cage, but is cornered by Kingston, who smashed him repeatedly with the stick. Kingston produced what appeared to be rubbing alcohol, but was cut off before he could use it.
Yeah. What's better than seeing Darth Kingston come through? Like, legitimately, that first swipe, I let out a laugh. I could not stop laughing. Just one swipe. Get out of my way. I can see Jericho, and yeah, whoever it was that was on the other side of the ring. I don't know if they just couldn't fall away quick enough or whatever it was, but him and Hagar were just stood there like taking these shots, and he just starts going nuts. And you're like, okay, Eddie's in his GTA boss mode. Like, whenever he walked down with that gas canister, it's just, if he was covered in blood, that he would look exactly the same in terms of I'm coming for Chris Jericho right now. But oh dear, it was just I was so happy to see Eddie get his hands on Chris Jericho and in this match, because it was just violence. Like, I thought Moxley turned it up, but it's the running joke. Does Eddie know? Wrestling's
Not
wrestling's
real.
not real? I'm never going to be the one to tell him, or insult him like that, because wrestling is obviously his life. It's real. It's real for him. It is his life, of course. But there are some moments where you are scared for everyone involved.
The storyline aspect of, again, him coming in last, a la, and then Jericho coming in last, but that when he comes in, the intensity on his face, locks eyes with Chris, who's in the other ring, and just doesn't break eye contact. And again, with the kendo shot, guy comes for him, boom, swats him away. Second guy comes for him, boom, swats him away. Gets caught up with the third guy, but again, it's just, he's laser focused on Chris. And just even that first, 90 seconds of him being in the match, absolutely just so good. Tremendous storytelling.
Yeah, there was a shot of him, I think, when Santana got into the ring. As soon as Santana got into the ring and he was doing all his stuff, there was a shot that panned to Eddie. He was just holding on to the ring and he was just staring. And you could tell he wasn't looking at anybody in particular. He was staring straight through to Chris on the other side, because Chris wasn't in yet. You just saw this intensity, and I was just like, oh, he's gonna actually try and kill Chris. I can see this happening. Like, okay, just let him in, please. Let's see what happens.
So we see here the Blackpool Combat Club's team is firmly in control, and they powerbomb Hager through a table set up between both rings. Yuta and Moxley produced multiple bags of thumbtacks as Claudio and Ortiz exposed the ring boards. Moxley suplexes Menard onto the tacks, and Parker was practically strung up by the ankles in a relatively nasty spot as he tried to escape and ends up getting through the not the lattice, but the structure there, and gets caught up by his ankles.
Support area.
Yeah. And then the truss. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for, the truss. And then Kingston and Jericho are going at it. Kingston got the upper hand, but Jericho took him out with a fire extinguisher. And then Conte got involved and took out the official, leading to Ruby Soho coming in and brawling with her and taking her out.
Yeah, Cool Hand Ange definitely had a really, really good spot here after the aforementioned tax and stuff went down, and taking even more damage to the face. He was like, I need to get the heck out of here. And it was great. He must have seen that he could get through.
Mm.
He crawls through. I saw a fan video on Twitter where he crawls through the truss, like literally just gets in, crawls through, and that would be amazing because I'm a big guy, and that would kind of scare me that I'd get stuck. So like he just gets through, and he's about to climb out, and then all you see is Yuta come along, climb up the inside, and just stick his boot through and just boot him in the face. And he sells it so well. Ange and Menard are two of the MVPs of this match for me, for their selling, for their absolute trust in everybody here. And Ange just lying there, just hanging out for I don't know how long until he managed to get out and get free because there was other stuff going on at the time we didn't really see. It wasn't really focused on very well, but that was definitely one of the highlights for me for him, that he was selling this extremely good match.
I do like the fact that sort of each person, I mean, there's 10 guys in this match again, and it was given this entire second hour of Dynamite. So obviously there's a lot time to fill, but then also a lot of things to do. But I do appreciate that sort of everyone kind of individually got like at least one or maybe two things in there that you kind of like, oh yeah, and then this is what, Daddy Magic, Matt Menard did. And here's something that, I remember Angelo Parker and type of thing. So I do appreciate that for sure.
Definitely.
And then we see, of course, obviously, to help even the odds, Ruby Soho just coming in, and longtime friend of Eddie Kingston, both in kayfabe and in shoot, coming out to help even the odds with Ty Conti on the outside. So that was kind
It
of
was
cool, a
nice to
little
see her.
nice
Yeah,
little storyline piece to help there, kind of, because it was
'cause
like
there was
obviously,
a promo beforehand. I think it said that she was friends with him and stuff, and like
yeah,
on all this here, and she came running down after Ty Conti ambushed the ref and got Chris out. So that was really cool to see. Obviously, the interference of Ty Conti, how she was going to do that, because that led to them getting on top of the cage, which was something that I was wondering how are they going to do that, because there has to be a spot up there.
yeah.
And then Ruby coming down and uh, beating her while she's scrambling to keep her skirt down, which I find hilarious. It's just Ty Conti just not even defending herself, pulling her skirt down. It's like,
Yeah.
don't wear a skirt that short, then, please. Come on.
Oh, you gotta look good for the big show there, brother.
It's not hard for her to look good. She's a good looking person, all right. But if you're trying to defend yourself from getting a beating and you're a heel, don't wear a skirt if it's gonna be a belt.
Ironically, that's good heel heat because they're just like,
Yeah,
I don't care that you're kind of beating me up. I just
just
gotta keep my looks in. So,
don't want anybody to see my butt.
yeah, so we then cut to Jericho escaping the structure and climbing on top of it. Kingston pursues him all the way to the top of the Blood and Guts cage. They end up fighting, leading to Kingston nailing him with the Uraken, which is the back spinning fist. And then Sammy Guevara climbs up too and then gets cutting off Kingston from attacking Jericho. And then probably the most memorable segment from this match, Kingston hits Guevara with a low blow and then tosses him off the top of the double cage through a table at ringside.
Don't remember Sammy Guevara falling off a tall structure. What do you mean?
You don't?
No, this is pretty. No, I think I'd remember that, but I don't remember. No. Of course, like the one thing Sammy Guevara does really well is fall off the big tall thing. I made a joke a few weeks ago about how Sammy said that he was well known for the ladder matches in AEW, and I made a quip that he's really only known for getting injured in them. So the fact that he volunteered for this spot with Eddie, sure, okay, cool. It was, like I said, there was always going to be a spot on top of the cage. It was how we were going to get there, who was going to be. The last time it was Chris that took the plunge, and we all know how that went. With an awful lot of salty fans saying, "Oh, it was stupid," blah blah blah, and you're like, okay, you get on top of that cage and see how you like falling off, because
Just
I'm
just
sure you're not
stand
going to do it to me.
25 feet above the ground just for starters and then go from there.
I am scared being as tall as I am, and I'm not very tall. I can tell you what. So it's one of those things that Sammy. took the low blow, took the plunge, did a flip in the air as well. It's not like he just fell over, did a flip, landed on the timekeeper's cushioned table. And for anybody who ever wants to fight about it, it's like, oh, it's so it's so stupid. Why they have cushion things? It's like it's really good that they have these things cushioned because we don't want what happens to Mick Foley to happen to anyone else. Like it's all well and good you screaming out, "By God, he's broken in half," mimicking JR, people falling off cages, falling through cages. We now know, or rather, we are more aware of the fact that we need to protect these people, and that as much as it's fun and we're saying it's really good, the violence in this thing, but nobody needs to fall from a 25-foot, 30-foot cage onto the concrete floor without some safety precautions. These guys are professionals. They have to be treated like professionals in their safety as well. Injuries are going to happen, of course, but whenever you're trying these big ass spots, then we need to be protected. We need to be protecting them more importantly.
Yeah, we spoke about it in previous episodes about, we want all these guys and gals to be successful, but wrestling, you only have a short amount of time to do it. Some folks get a couple matches, folks get a couple years, some folks might actually get 15, 20 years or so, but it's only for a portion of your life, and I don't want them to potentially have a foggy brain, or not be able to kind of walk like Mick Foley has trouble doing. So again, if whatever it was, if you're going to take a big spot and then you happen to go through a double stack of tables or whatever it is, let's I'll give Sammy credit. He may not be the most beloved character, but I appreciate Sammy the person who ends up, he's like, for the match and everything, like whether he came up with a spot or was posed to him, he's like, I'm okay with doing this. We set it up so that we can have a spectacular spot, and then him not be, break anything or potentially be ridiculously serious injured.
Yeah, like if it was proposed to him, or whether or not he proposed it, or whether it proposed to him, like the fact that he said yes, or the fact that he wanted to do this spot is just it says so much that he wants to make this match more memorable. You said before each of these guys had a spot that they were made, that they all had, like Daddy Magic and Cool Hand Ange were just they have been taking a lot of the brunt because you have your big hosses. You're not going to be seeing Jake Hager taking too many of these things because he's a big tough guy. He's got to be seen to be nigh on invincible. Then you got the Danny Garcia and Wheeler Yuta spots, absolutely beating the tar out of each other. So all these guys getting these spots, sure, like we expect Claudio, Jake, Ortiz, Jericho, Jon Moxley all to have these cool spots, but it's the other guys that I was really impressed with throughout this match. And in my opinion, they were actually the ones that made it more entertaining for me.
Yeah, in terms of the match as a whole, yeah, guys like Matt Menard and Angelo Parker and Wheeler and Danny Garcia, definitely helped kind of fill in and plug some of the little bit of lulls and gaps in a
Yeah,
45, 50-minute long match. So definitely kudos to those guys for sure.
100%.
All right, we see the finish of the match where Jericho put Kingston and the walls of Jericho on top of the structure. Claudio climbed and booted Jericho to break up the submission. He gave Jericho the giant swing on top of the cage and went for a sharpshooter, but Matt Menard climbed up to cut him off. Kingston locks Jericho in the stretch plum. Claudio applies the sharpshooter to Matt Menard, who taps out, giving the Blackpool Combat Club team the win. And we see after the match, Kingston was frustrated because he wanted to tap out Jericho, but Claudio won the match before he could.
Yeah, and so this lends to our earlier point, or your earlier point. It's really hard to gas out Claudio because Claudio was up on the top of this ring, giving Jericho the giant swing, and then got Matt Menard into the sharpshooter. And then after the victory, was so energetic and so hyped up, probably more so than a lot of people that were in the match could possibly be. Like, Jon Moxley is not a big fan of the heights. Like, Jon Moxley's like myself, wants to keep his feet firmly on the ground. You could see that when he was climbing up. Like, Claudio was offering his hand to everybody to help him on up to the top, and bless those boys getting Bryce Remsburg up there to raise their hands as well.
I think Bryce sent out a tweet. He was like, first, last, and only time I'll be up there. Yeah. So.
It was good. It was good on Bryce. Like, definitely one of those things that he has an awful lot of interactions with these guys. Good friends with Eddie Kingston, good friends with Claudio, etc., all the way down the line. Like, good friends with these people, and it's nice to see that interaction that he went up there. One of the underlying things that was said throughout the entire time was the issues that Claudio and Eddie have. And that's where the end of this match really came to head for me, where I was like, okay, cool. It's a nice little story that they're going to add in. Obviously, at the end of Forbidden Door, which we'll talk about later on, there was allusions to it. And here there was the whole thing where Claudio was trying to help Eddie up again, so he was looking for the fist bump, and he went to help him up, and Eddie was like, no. I can't remember exactly what he said. You couldn't really hear it, but you could tell he was mouthing it. He's like, no, I'm okay. I've hurt my back, so I can't get up, but I'm okay. He wasn't saying it like he was shouting it at him or he was rude. He was saying it, dude, I've hurt myself. Just leave me for a wee minute. And then Cesaro went over and helped everybody else up. Like, he was giving fist bumps to Eddie before the match started. So clearly, suspending disbelief. They are friendly, and I like to see that, because I don't think it's possible for anyone to hate Claudio. And you can easily see that by the fact that whenever he was in that match, he just had so much fun. And at the end of the match, he was running around on top of that cage. You were like, yes.
Yeah, kudos again to Claudio being the first guy in, doing the whole match, and then being involved in the finish, and then just crazy energy again, and just kind of doing laps around the top of the cage. So
no fear in that man.
Yeah, no fear at all.
Everybody else was legitimately just climbing up, and like I said, Moxley was like, "How the hell, Jack?" If you watch it back, you'll see Mox just kind of going, I don't really want to be getting up here. It takes his time climbing up and all this, and yeah.
But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Little storytelling segments about again where we had Eddie putting the submission on Chris, and then Claudio putting the submission on Matt Menard, but Matt ends up tapping out kind of to save Jericho, but then also, just to kind of end the match and type of thing, sort of save his boss. But yeah, you could see that, again, Eddie was appreciative that his team won, but disappointed that he wanted to be, because again, we spoke about it earlier, for Eddie and Chris being sort of the catalyst, and this is the payoff to it again. We had the Anarchy in the arena match, and then now we had Blood and Guts, but again, sort of them being the proponent and the guys that are kind of leading the charge in this. Again, he wanted to be the person to submit or surrender Chris, but kind of Claudio stealing a little bit of the thunder. And again, this goes back to 15 plus years of Eddie and Claudio do not like each other. And they have and you can see a thing we'll talk about later on the Forbidden Door thoughts and takeaways. But yeah, so begrudgingly they're working together against a common enemy in Chris and his Legion of Doom, in a sense, but his collection, his menagerie of villains. But yeah, it was tough. He begrudgingly accepted the victory, but the little seeds were sown for more to come between Claudio and Eddie.
I think menagerie of villains is a little bit too much to describe these guys, because whenever you come down in matching uniforms that have suspenders and wife beaters and flat caps, and you have Big Jake Hagar in the exact same thing, not gonna lie, it was a little bit tongue in cheek, Backstreet Boys sort of they've fallen to the dark side of pop music kind of thing coming down with Floyd the Bat over Jericho's shoulder. So yeah, menagerie of B-list villains, let's say, but it was still a very good match. And yeah, like you said, to your point, the outcome of that match definitely shows to me that there might be some rest in store for the JAS, and then some interaction for Claudio and Eddie in the coming weeks.
Yeah, so kudos to all 10 of these guys just for, man, just putting on one heck of a match. And, with Santana, unfortunately, just not having a big interaction in it. And again, we hopefully that he's not injured hugely and that he's okay and everything is going to be all right with him. But yeah, everybody did a phenomenal job. And this is definitely a one to remember for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right. And we definitely both enjoyed it, and definitely let us know in the comments down below or on Twitter or Instagram what your thoughts were on Blood and Guts. All right, as we move on to AEW and New Japan Pro Wrestling's Forbidden Door, we do a little bit of thoughts and takeaways from this match. One of the first ones we're going to highlight here is the double tag team championship match, as we saw FTR as the Ring of Honor champions take on the United Empire of Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb, which were the IWGP heavyweight champions, tag champions rather, and facing off against Roppongi Vice here. So the early portion of this match was highlighted by Dax being taken to the back with an apparent shoulder injury here. But essentially, Cash ended up fighting valiantly and getting some kind of fun back and forth between the resilient Cash and then Roppongi Vice, and obviously the big hosses in the Great O'Khan and Jeff Cobb. And we cut to the finish here, where we see Cobb hitting a standing moonsault on Rocky Romero, and then Great O'Khan being tossed Beretta into a German suplex from Cobb for a near fall. Romero took out Cash Wheeler and Great O'Khan with a tope, and then teamed up with Beretta for a strong zero on Cobb for a near fall. Harwood tags himself in and gets caught with an O'Connor roll, which was probably a 3 count, but was only supposed to be a 2. And then out of nowhere, Romero and Harwood exchange some near falls, but then subsequently, here out of nowhere, Wheeler and Harwood hit the big rig on Romero to get the pin, and FTR are now the AAA, Ring of Honor, and IWGP Heavyweight Tag Team Champions.
7-star FTR are great. Like you said, the start of this match was marred by a possible legit, really bad dislocation. I rewatched this little segment to see what could have happened. Maybe he tweaked it whenever he went for the elbow drop on the right side. It was actually his left shoulder that ended up having an issue. So whatever happened there, like you said, he came back eventually and got it all sorted. It was very, very good storytelling throughout this match, with Cash having to tag out to Roppongi Vice. The unfair athleticism of Jeff Cobb doing big man corn cob things with that standing moonsault was just it. We talked about this before. It makes me feel, I already feel inadequate whenever you watch some of this pro wrestling stuff back. Whenever you see an athlete of Jeff Cobb's stature, physique, just general power, you don't expect him to be able to do that. And then, like you said, the O'Connor roll on to Dax, followed by chants of "you effed up, you effed up." It was definitely a 3 count that was disguised as a 2 count. Maybe because of the shoulder issues. Obviously, for Dax, I think we can let this slide, but the AEW fans in attendance did not. It was another point where I rewound it and went, it's like, oh, it's 100% 3. Like, what? Anyway, and then the big rig to finish off. You were like, yeah. It was. I love the big rig. And it's nice to see FTR, and it might also help that I did peg FTR to win on this one. So
Yeah, I think in our predictions video, you definitely did pick FTR flat out to win. I mentioned too, I think for storyline purposes, I wanted to see FTR win because again, having them 3 belts and then going to challenge the Young Bucks for the AEW and potentially the possibility of him holding 4 belts is a good storyline. But out of thing, I was like, yeah, I want them to win, but I picked the United Empire, but we were both in agreement that this was definitely going to be a fun match either way, and
oh
it
yeah,
definitely was, in fact.
it was a great match. Great match. Definitely one that I would watch over and over and over again.
Yeah, I have note here that the it was later confirmed that the supposed storyline injury of Dax for his shoulder was reported to be again just kayfabe and part of the story of the match, and he is not injured.
Well, either way. It was really good because you had Cash Wheeler shouting, "You're legal! Pin him!" And shouting, getting caught up, and that's why I like being able to hear these random things that you can. It's like, you know, we heard Cash shouting, "Are you okay?" Like he was asking genuinely, "Are you okay?" And you see Doc Sampson coming over checking, and you can see Dax whispering to his ear, and then the boos as Dax is let off later on as well. I do like those little, none of these throwing up the symbols and stuff. Um, but I do like these things to be confirmed afterwards, because whenever you see one of the best babyface teams in all of AEW, two of the most babyface individuals in the entire company, you like they've went from big heels to big baby faces, and I typically don't like babyface players because they're boring. But FTR are like two of my absolute top guys, and that's complete accident. They are top guys everywhere.
Yeah, so glad at least that Dax is not hurt, and and at least it was if it was confirmed to be part just of the story of the match, then I'm okay with it because it added another element to it.
Definitely.
All right, we see here we move on to the All-Atlantic Championship, the 4-way match, as we see Pac facing off against Clark Connors, Miro, and Malakai Black. The early portion here, and sort of the thread throughout the match here, was Miro dominating the other 3 individuals in the match. We see Connors end up hitting a spear to Miro through a table on the outside, so having Miro end up getting a little bit of a reprieve. Connors ends up hitting Black with a spinning power slam and then gets caught Pac with a spear. And then Connors hitting the trophy kill on Pac, which was the inverted Blue Thunder Bomb for a near fall. And the crowd just starts getting behind Connors with a "Let's go Clark." So definitely a fantastic showing and a huge opportunity for Clark to get a absolute tremendous eyes on him on a big stage as we hear. And then we see Connors run in for a super kick on Pac, and then Pac wins going for a black arrow, but Malakai Black caught him. And we see the finish of the match that says we end up setting up a Tower of Doom spot where Miro on the bottom and power bombing everyone. And then finally, Miro tossed out Black and Connors, hit the Machka kick on Pac, and then locked the game over. And then Black comes in and hits Miro with the Black Mist. Black tries to lock in Connors in a hold, the Jujikatami, but ends up getting the Black Arrow onto both of them for the to break it up, and then Pac subsequently locks Connors into Brutalizer and gets the tap out and wins the All-Atlantic Championship.
Yeah, this was a great match. Much better than it had any intention of being. The All Oceans, the Irish Ocean, English Channel, Dead Sea Championship belt, being on Pac is something we both called. And we did both also kind of state that Connors was going to be left out in the cold here, but he worked really well in this match. He took some really big spots. Sorry, not took. He had some really big spots. Like you said, getting those chants off
Let's go
of
Clark.
him.
Yeah.
Let's go Clark. Just the chance of him being really really well received. It was really good to see. I think that the commentators were saying in the best, at best, he was giving up 9 years of experience in wrestling and at worst 16 years of experience. So, I mean, this guy was way out of his depth, but still managed to do some really cool stuff. And It was definitely a nice little nod to the ongoing storyline of the Kings of the Black Throne and the
Death
Death
Triangle.
Triangle.
Yeah.
Whenever Malakai was going after Pac, and then you saw Miro trying to get after Pac and pointing to his bicep and going, "No, this is my revenge. You're not taking this from me." And I was like, "That's what it was. It was his freaking bicep." Because back in whenever Pac was Neville and Miro was Rusev, there was an altercation where Pac had I think it was snapped the tendon or something in the bicep, and that's why his bicep went all weird. But definitely put him on the shelf, and it was that's why it was a surprise to me that these two were in the same ring, because Miro had said on his Twitch channel, I believe, ages ago that he'd never work with him again. But I'm glad he did, because they worked really well.
Yeah, tremendous showing again by Clark Connors. He's only, a couple years out of the New Japan dojo. So again, he's may not be as experienced with the other guys, but he did. He worked well. He took some spots. He gave some spots. So again, tremendous showing by him. And then, I appreciated that the crowd in the arena definitely noticed that and gave him, some chance as well. And I did find it kind of interesting again that it was the Malakai Black at one point that you were speaking of, the Malakai Black and then Miro were kind of like fighting over, no, I want to beat him up. No, I want to beat him up. And it made me think of the old Simpsons reference. It's okay, boys. You both can have me, type of thing. But yeah, kind of letting their sort of personal kind of animosity towards Pac, Mr. Bastard himself, if you're nasty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of coming to play and then fighting each other because they both wanted to get at him. But yeah, you and I both called it that we were looking to see Pac win the championship, and definitely a long time coming. This would be Pac's first championship in AEW.
And hopefully not his last. Hopefully you can parlay this into bigger and better things down the line.
Yeah, so tremendous matchup for sure. Next one we're going to look at is Will Ospreay facing off against Orange Cassidy for the IWGP United States Heavyweight Championship. And then we end up getting a little controversy as we see Juice Robinson sitting up in the skybox again as the previous holder of the belt, who is stripped by New Japan but still holds physical possession of the belt itself. So I have note here that Ospreay just looks gigantic next to Orange Cassidy. And again, like, it's not to say that he's like crazy tall or a bodybuilder, 6'7", 300 pounds of muscle, but even though Orange Cassidy is a very fit individual, like, Will just looked like huge next to him, which was really cool to help him, even though he's elevated into the heavyweight division in New Japan, kind of help parlay that, and it was sort of a nice visual there. Back and forth, the kind of going with the athleticism, playing off the Kawada kicks spot to Cassidy, and then him just kind of like doing his Orange style Kawada. Will's like, bruh, like, seriously, this guy? So, and then the athleticism kicking in, the suplex into the Stun Dog Millionaire spot by Orange was fantastic. But we see the finish here as Ospreay ends up getting a cutter on him, and then we go see he misses. He gets the Os cutter for a near fall. He goes for the hidden blade, but Cassidy avoids it. Ospreay then goes for the Stormbreaker, but then Cassidy counters for a Hurricane Rana into a cradle for dang near near fall, 2.99 in Fightum. And then Ospreay hit the hidden blade, but only gets to 2, and the crowd goes absolutely nuts. Ospreay was shocked, but he ends up going for the Stormbreaker and gets the pin and retains the IWGP United States Championship.
The athleticism from both of these guys was insane. Definitely, in terms of all the matches on this card, I was expecting good things. I was obviously I'd stated before in previous weeks that Ospreay coming in has kind of wanted me to and the United Empire and as a whole, obviously with my fanaticism for Jeff Cobb doing big corn cob things, Billy Goat just doing absolute nutty things here. Like you said, the Kawada kicks that he was doing, and then Orange copying his sloth style Kawada kicks, only to give him actual Kawada kicks to the face. His psychology was definitely on show here. There was a spot up on one of the top middle rope, whatever it was, where Orange just smacked Ospreay's face off the corner camera, and then he kind of got down onto the mat and then threw himself onto the ground and just started to make a ruckus because he dazed Ospreay. Ospreay just goes for a backflip into a backflip, and just kind of just showing off how athletic he was. And more
Into a
of
standing shooting star press.
into a standing shooting star press. Sorry, yes, that was the finish of that sequence. And then the psychology of Orange Cassidy in this match was even more on show when Ospreay did go for a nos cutter off the middle rope or the whatever it was, and Orange just takes a step back, and it's nothing. It was just so good. Like those little things that you saw from Orange Cassidy, you were just like, wow, like this guy, this guy obviously has a stigma about him that is only a comedic wrestler. Obviously, that's what his gimmick is, and that's the way he plays it. And he plays it really well. But he has that switch that he just, he can go with the best of them, and Will Ospreay is definitely one of the best of them. And this match was, for me personally, match of the night.
Yeah, you and I called it in our previous episode where we did predictions. We both saw Ospreay winning in this matchup, but we both made note to keep an eye on this particular matchup because again, we know that Will Ospreay can go, and then obviously when Orange turns it on, dude can be absolutely athletic and really kind of just play off and can go with some of the best of them. So I'm in agreement that this was definitely match of the night contender. Yeah, and then again, just all around, just the athleticism was just undeniable in this matchup.
Yeah, insane.
And as a special note here, after the match, we end up having Aussie Open beating up Cassidy and fellow members of Chaos, Rocky Romero and Trent Beretta come in, but then end up getting laid out. But then the music hits and the arena goes absolutely nuts as we see Katsuyori Shibata come down to the ring. Ends up taking out Aussie Open, and then he hits Ospreay with a pump kick, and then he does the corner drop kick, of course, and he goes for the rear naked choke, but then Aussie Open pulls him out to save Ospreay. But holy crap, the pop for Shibata was unreal.
Yeah, his music hit, and they made mention of a guy holding a sign. If I hear Shibata's music, I'm going to cry. And Kevin was like, "Get that man a Kleenex," like 100%. I have no idea, and I've made no bones about not knowing NJPW, but even I had goosebumps. Like just because of the level of the pop, you can't help but get drawn into the excitement for whoever this was. And I went and looked up who Shibata was, or is rather, and he's got some accolades. Unfortunately, he's a proponent of a headbutt and has done himself some serious injury, and on top of other injuries and whatnot. So please, everybody, stop using a headbutt. Stop it. Just stop it. Flat out. Don't use it anymore. Unless you're going to do the old Glasgow kiss and have your hand in front of your forehead anyway. But anyway, regardless, this was just amazing. The little after segment with him and Cassidy. Clearly, there was him wanting to have a little bit of a spotlight with Cassidy as well, but he was wearing glasses and stuff. And he looked cool as hell.
Again, I too got goosebumps when I heard the music, and then I was like, "Is it?" And then Shibata showed up on the ramp. Yeah, I was just like, "Wow, okay, they're just they're going for broke in this thing, and I appreciated the crowd. You know, there was conjecture or there was criticism. It was like, oh, critics were like, nobody's gonna know who these New Japan guys were, and the crowd and everybody knew and appropriately gave the appropriate reactions to all the New Japan participants in this in this pay per view. So
Yeah, there was like I don't really think that anybody can say that about anybody at the minute because they've lost their minds at Okada's entrance. They've lost their minds when Tanahashi appeared. They lost their minds to Shibata's entrance. They sing along to Suzuki's entrance. Like, how can anyone say that, you know, and this is someone who doesn't know an awful lot about the NJPW wrestlers. How can anyone say that a crowd of pro wrestling fans that is going to this event, that is paying money to go to this event, is not going to react to these wrestlers? Are you stupid? Like, are you legitimately dumb? Because I wouldn't go to something that I didn't know at least something about. So, come on, guys. This was an absolutely amazing reaction. Drew me in, gave me goosebumps for somebody I didn't know who it was, got me to go and look up who they were. You know, come on. It was amazing.
yeah, and to not sell short of Shibata who he is again. If you have an opportunity, if you're curious as to who this individual is, a little bit of context, and he's part of the sort of newer Three Musketeers alongside Hiroshi Tanahashi and Shinsuke Nakamura. Just three talented guys coming out of the dojo and just being top tier talent. And again, you mentioned he ended up a couple years back, ended up just having a bit of injury due to some headbutt spots. Again, unfortunately, if I'm not mistaken, a subdural hematoma, which is an absolutely serious injury. So he's now in his role as the trainer of the LA dojo. But notwithstanding, yeah, dude's a big deal, and just he got the appropriate reaction.
Yeah. He definitely got a reaction that was deserving of the person, the stature that he is.
And speaking of phenomenal reactions from the crowd, the next matchup ended up being Zack Sabre Jr. against Bryan Danielson's proxy, which now we know, of course, turns out to be Big Tony, Swiss man himself, Claudio Castagnoli, and the
The
absolute
Superman.
Swiss Superman himself, and the pop and reaction from the crowd was another goosebumps moment for me.
Same. I was I was watching it, and because I didn't know his indie theme, and the camera wasn't on the ramp, I was like, okay, okay. And I just heard this pop. And I was like, is it? Because already Zack Sabre Jr. was in the thing. So is it Claudio? Is it Claudio? And then it turns. I runs out. I'm like, yes! I was legitimately screaming at 10 a.m. watching this thing. Just going, yes! And just I was so excited. Like I don't know why. Because like this is one thing that I was like, okay, it has to be Claudio in this match. He's obviously going to win, but big thing was big, and I popped appropriately. And this is one thing that if I had known who Shibata was, I probably would have done the same thing for him, and I would have lost my mind there. But I lost my mind here instead. So it was great.
Yeah, it was one of those where obviously the unfortunate having Bryan Danielson just being not medically cleared, but it's one of those where you run circles in your mind about who could it be? And then you with the notion of it being a mystery opponent, you end up kind of doing the hype for yourself and kind of hyping yourself up. And I'm like, all right, in my brain, it's going to be this person, and if it's not, I'm going to be disappointed. But
Exactly.
again, it turned out that it sort of was, pretty much who the collective internet wrestling community thought it was going to be, and we were pleasantly surprised, and we had the appropriate reaction to that.
Yeah. Maybe in maybe for some people it was an overreaction because it was really really good. Like it was obscene to see this man back in action and just jump out onto the ramp. And yeah, like I said, or like you said, rather, we build this up into our mind, and if we're wrong, we're kind of feel a bit let down. But like, so if it had been anyone else other than Claudio, I'd have been like, yes, really cool. But it was Claudio, so my reaction was more like this. Um, so yeah, it was definitely one of those things that, having talked about Blood and Guts earlier, it was a great thing that Claudio was in that match as well. So to see him here and to see his AEW debut, the match notwithstanding, this was definitely a highlight of the pay per view for me.
Definitely as well. All right, the next one we're going to highlight is the four-way for the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship, as we see champion Jay White take on Hangman Adam Page, Kazuchika Okada, and Adam Cole Bebe. As we get into the introductions, Okada gets the largest ovation of the four, for sure. And then as we get into as the bell rings.
But no one will know these NJPW wrestlers, PT. Remember, no one will know them.
That's correct. Of course, we were pleasantly surprised. And then as the bell rang, the crowd absolutely loses their mind before anyone ever does anything in this matchup. So that was a nice touch. An early plot thread in the matchup here is we see the pseudo reunion of Bullet Club members Adam Cole and Jay White kind of working together against Hangman and Okada. We see the finish here as Okada hits a landslide on Cole and then goes for a Rainmaker, but we see Cole sort of fall to his knees and ends up kind of cutting out there. But we have Jay White run in and hits Okada with the Blade Runner and then rushes over to Cole for the 3 count. And it appears from things considered that Cole was hurt during the match, a little bit earlier on towards the middle portion of the segment. And then we hear from Excalibur that he was at least able to walk to the back under his own power.
Yeah. So for me, I was trying to find the point at which I kind of assume the Adam Cole was injured. The match was fantastic up to this point, and it was definitely a deflating end. I'm not going to say disappointing because you can't blame anyone for getting injured, but apparently the sequence of events leading up to that was how it was supposed to go. So Okada was supposed to hit the Rainmaker. You were supposed to have Jay White come in, hit his move, and then pin Adam Cole. Like that was apparently supposed to be the way to go. The fact that Adam Cole kind of lost his weight under him and the Rainmaker missed just made that sort of sequence of events a little bit janky and not fit so well, which is why it was a bit surprising that it happened and why the reaction from the crowd was one of disbelief. Um, it did look like was one of the moves near the end that Okada did on Cole, because up till then he was super kicking, he was doing some moves, and he was quite active. There was also tell that Adam Cole possibly suffered a concussion. So there are several things in there that possibly all led up to the fact that Cole just sort of lost his sort of ability to keep himself up. But hopefully, it's not as bad as we are assuming, because, like you said, he did manage to make his way to the back under his own steam, which is really good to see. So no knee injuries at the present time, possibly a shoulder aggravation, because I know he had a shoulder issue. He did have kinesio tape on one of his shoulders as well. So I know I'm talking more about the injury than the match. Like the match itself, there's not much you can say about it because you need to see it. It's one of those matches where there was spot after spot that wheeled into each other, storyline telling of Adam Cole giving Jay White direction, Jay White giving that sort of reciprocation, and then getting the backstabber, which was apropos for what he was doing. And it was just amazing. It was a really good match. And as a very first time seeing Okada in a match, I felt that it was good. It wasn't mind blowing, and I think that's probably down to the ending of the match. So it's nothing that I can put down on Okada himself.
Yeah, and if we did a sort of sequence by sequence breakdown, it wouldn't do the match justice. So we definitely one of those that we highly recommend checking out. Yeah, and again, New Japan is very rare for a singles title. I think Kevin Kelly mentioned it, but very, very, very rare. Almost never happens that a single title is contested in anything other than a one-on-one match. So this was a little different and kind of out of the ordinary for that. But yeah, to your point, for guys that can just absolutely go in a match and, type of thing, we got a little bit of from each individual. But yeah, in terms of folks that aren't familiar with Jay White or Okada, got to again get a little bit of a taste. And to your point about maybe not notice or not kind of seeing that potentially full potential, when these guys can kind of get that, when a Jay White or an Okada especially can get that sort of longer 30 to 40 minute, and you can see the beginning, middle, and end move sequence, storytelling, little plot points in that. That's when definitely, again, guys like Okada shine. But notwithstanding, phenomenal, fun match. And yeah, we just hope that the injury, again, we talked about in previous episode, the injury bug has been hitting the entire wrestling world hard as of late. And we spoke about Adam Cole having a injury to his shoulder, a labrum tear potentially, and now this again. We just hope he's okay. And again, AEW's got a stacked roster. Dude, take the time to get yourself better. Maybe if he's definitely not having him wrestle and type of thing. If he comes and maybe he was doing some commentary before, we get that, it's a bonus. But yeah, let the guy take the time that he needs so he can come back and we can have Adam Cole for the long term.
I definitely think that adding him into the commentary team would be really, really good to keep him on our screens. Should he require the time away, let's face it, take the time away. If it's a big injury, the same thing with CTE, take all the time he needs. We've already heard rumors about Kenny Omega that he says if he has one more major setback in his physio, in his reconstruction, basically, he's done with wrestling. So please do not rush back into anything, and that goes for everybody who got injured. Try and take care of yourself. Obviously, I know the passion is there for a lot of people that they want to get back as soon as possible. These guys and girls are all really athletic, and their bodies will heal a little bit faster. But definitely do take the time and get yourself correct, so that we can have you wrestling for another few years as opposed to another few months.
100%. All right, and the last matchup we're going to look at today is Jon Moxley facing off against Hiroshi Tanahashi for the vacant interim AEW World Heavyweight Championship. So all around, just kind of fun matchup here, definitely going back and forth. We see the contrast of styles, of looking at the little bit more rugged and kind of, I wouldn't, extreme's not the right word, but rough and tough Jon Moxley facing off against the a little bit more well-rounded and finesse-driven offense of Hiroshi Tanahashi. We end up seeing a Tanahashi hitting Moxley with a sling blade and then sending Moxley out to the floor. There was conjecture whether or not they may have collided heads, because we see Moxley coming up with a laceration on his head. But yeah, we see end up Tanahashi coming up the top rope with a high fly flow to him on the floor. And then we see the finishing sequence here. Tanahashi fights out of a bulldog choke and counters a rear naked choke with a cradle for a 2. Moxley hitting the King Kong lariat, but only getting a 1 count and kind of powering up. And I don't want to say Hulk up, redacted. But
I was about to say that was a Hulk Hogan moment right there for me. It was like, okay.
Moxley hammered Tanahashi with some elbows, 12-6, and the crowd starts booing Moxley, interestingly enough. Moxley locked in another choke with a body scissors, and the crowd starting to chant, "Go Ace," for Tanahashi. And we see Moxley try to bulldog choke, but Tanahashi fought out, and Moxley then hits the Death Rider, which is the high angle elevated double arm DDT, for the pinfall, winning the AEW Interim World Heavyweight Championship.
No one will know who these New Japan wrestlers are. Go Ace.
Go
Boo Jon
Ace.
Moxley. Are you serious? If you watch this pay-per-view, I can guarantee you two things. You're gonna get goosebumps, you're gonna bloody enjoy it. And it's not just because of the AEW wrestlers either. Like, these NJPW stars are more than holding their own. I would say even go and watch the pre-show. I don't like pre-shows. I hate them. Probably because WWE has conditioned me to hate them because all it is Booker T talking. Anyway, because he normally gets it wrong anyway, so whatever. So you have all of these amazing stars, and then you cap this off with Mox and Tanahashi. And yeah, the the King Kong lariat with the one count. I was like, excuse me? Who do you think you are, Hulk Hogan? Like, just popping straight up. Then the immediate boos of Moxley as he's getting his gritty offense in, and yeah, another thing where they were just talking about. I think it was a match that Tanahashi had before. What was it that he had the match with? Doesn't matter. He said that he didn't like the violence of the match, and then he gets put through a table.
It might have been the matchup with Kenta, but yeah.
That was it. It was Kenta. And he said he didn't like. He was glad he won the match, but he didn't like the match at all because the violence and stuff in it. So Mox is a really bad opponent for him if that's the case. So he goes through the table, and they make mention of the 20 count in NJPW and the fact that he makes it in for the count of 10, being aware of the rules. So it just makes you aware that Tanahashi he's aware of the different rules, and he's not going to be counted out for something silly. He's not. This is not a rookie. And then you get the chance of Go Ace and stuff, and like I said, the boost Jon Moxley was the most surprising thing ever because this man is universally loved. Like, how do you go from Jon Moxley being adored on his entranceway, like he legitimately walked to the ring and was mobbed, loved, and then he's getting booed because he's beating Tanahashi up? You're like, okay, cool. And then the ending of it was just sublime, with the Death Rider and the eventual pin, and yeah, I can't say enough good words about this match.
Yeah, another banger of a match for sure. We both agreed that the safe bet was for Jon to win the match, of course.
Yep.
But yeah, that speaks to the volume of the storytelling for these two in the matchup. Because again, you have the sort of rough and tough of Jon Moxley against the sort of slightly more finesse style of Tanahashi. For large portions of the match, you had Jon, I wouldn't say dominating, but he was just like, it was sort of a rough matchup, and got a lot of offense on Tanahashi. And especially during those, the last, 3 to 4 to 5 minutes of the matchup, you felt the fans like, all right, we're rallying against, rather for Tanahashi with the Go Ace chants, everything. And they're just like, all right, damn, like this guy's like, ooh. So, you get that fighting from underneath effect for Tanahashi. But yeah, again, even though they were both fan favorites for sure, you see the weaving of the story in the match. So I can see it's understandable as to why the folks are definitely, again, they crowd likes both guys, but they're just like, all right, go Ace, let's go. So
yeah, we're picking our favorite. We're picking this horse, and this is the one we want. And the other horse is even though we love that other horse, don't you win? Don't you dare!
yeah.
We want this one to win.
Yeah, definitely awesome to see Jon, and now a two-time AEW World Heavyweight Championship, holding the interim distinction. But we see post-match, they have a respect spot between Jon and Tanahashi, but gets interrupted by Jericho and his rogues gallery, and then leading to basically a whole schmaz and a big brawl, again feeding into the aforementioned Blood and Guts matchup.
Yeah, with Claudio having pride of place, getting his music played as he runs down to the ring and gives people the giant swing, um, just because. So this definitely this after brawl finished off the match. Probably was slotted in because of the injury sustained in the IWGP match, with the abrupt end there was rushed. That's what I heard, at least, was the fact that this little bit was added in to use up that extra time. So yeah, it was a nice little respect spot, interrupted by, of course, the JAS. But we all know what they got. They got their comeuppance uh, from the in the Blood and Guts match. So I don't feel so bad.
Yeah. So we definitely enjoyed Forbidden Door, and those were kind of some of our highlights and our thoughts and our takeaways. Let us know down in the comments below on YouTube, or hit us up on Twitter or Instagram to let us know your thoughts on Forbidden Door as well.
Definitely do, because this is one pay per view that I think everybody needs to watch at least once or twice more.
Agreed. All right, time for some quick hits. Once again, quick hits are little segments that happen throughout the week's events that we really enjoyed, or we sort of popped the boys segments, or we already talked about a couple of pieces throughout, most notably Claudio's debut, as well as Shibata coming in, being ones that we spoke about as well. But we have some extra here, so I'll start us off today. This actually happened during the main event of the Forbidden Door buy-in show, which is the pre-show. We ended up having Max Caster and the Gun Club, Austin, Colton, and Billy, taking on members of the New Japan LA Dojo. But as we are about to kick things off into the matchup, we have Danhausen coming up on the screen and saying he's got a surprise for Colton and Austin. And what do we hear? Willie Ass Boys, Billy Ass and the Ass Boys, none other than Danhausen's commissioned a theme for the aforementioned Ass Boys, which is absolutely phenomenal and fun. Produced and actually created by the incomparable 2 Minutes to Late Night. So I absolutely popped huge when I heard that song come on.
I'm not gonna lie, the same. I had this big cheesy grin, and that's why it was so. I was so happy. I watched the buy-in, the pre-show, whatever you want to call it. Like this was a huge pop for me as well. It was so hilarious. I love Danhausen.
Absolutely. To obviously it was a fun matchup there, but totally fun. I absolutely lost my gall when I heard that. And for those folks that are unfamiliar with 2 Minutes to Late Night, they are a YouTube and content creating group. Especially they end up making, especially during this past quarantine, made a ton of awesome music covers that covered a wide genre of music. And in addition to making music, they have a bit of kind of a just sort of weird, fun comedy piece. So if you have an opportunity, definitely check them out. They have a lot of fun content. So that was my quick hits. Joker, do you have any quick hits from this week?
I have one, and in
Okay.
typical Joker fashion, I have picked the one thing that, outside of the ones that we have already talked about, made me laugh and or giggle and or just generally feel sports entertained. And it was the debut of the Maximum Male Models on Friday Night SmackDown this week, where we see Max Dupree come to the ring to do his talking segment. I'm so happy this is going on. The weeks of teasing are over. We now get to see Masse and Monsoir, as they are now known, come to the ring, giving us the struts. Obviously, not quite comfortable in the male model personas just yet, but come on, they're now outside a or rather in front of a live TV audience, not a dark match. Everybody complaining that oh, we've known about these people for weeks. Shut up. This is fun. This is sports entertainment. This is entertainment. Yes, we've known about it for weeks. Who the heck cares? Just enjoy it. These guys are. They're finally getting on TV. Come on. And I just absolutely love this bit because whenever they each came out, Max was just describing them. The 36-inch waist, the ankles, the fanny pack across Monsour's or Monsoir's chest. Sorry, I loved it. Loved everything about it.
I appreciated the fact that Marseille and Monsoir were actually
Monsoir.
trying to give it socks and work the gimmicks. So I at least appreciated that for sure.
Yeah. Like you just saw Marseille just going up to the cameras and giving these poses, and you're just like, he's given the chest, he's just getting the chest. If he had any hamburger meat, it probably would have been out, but he's trying to pose and stuff. I'm just butchering it now, but it just looked so fun. Like this is an angle that these guys can have fun with, and I'm sorry, but Mansoor never got on TV before, unless it was for a Saudi show.
Yeah.
So him to be on TV now, I'm genuinely happy for Mansoor. Like this Mansoir character, Massé, I don't care what they're called, but these guys being on TV and the Max, Mansoor, and Mace, the Triple M, the maximum male models. Yes, next week we get to see the Wimbledon themed tennis attire. And even though I'm not a big tennis follower, I can't wait to see them all with their little stupid jumpers tied around their shoulders.
Do you recall what sort of the last couple lines was? It something titillating.
We're going to titillate the juices of your desires or something like this here. Whatever it was.
Yeah, titillate the juices.
Yeah, it was titillate the juices. I was like, Max, this is a PG show. Calm down. But yeah, they definitely titillated whatever I had because that was funny.
I agree that was pure bollocks, but I enjoyed that too. I was like, what is going on?
Sports entertainment, my friend. That's all the WWE professes to give us. And I haven't been entertained by anything that they've done for a long time. So congratulations, I've been sports entertained.
I agree too. And those were our quick hits from this week. Let us know what your quick hits were as well. All right, and that about wraps it up for us. Joker, how was it for you? Because that was fun for me, man.
Yeah, it was good. I've actually already submitted my application to Max Dupree's Maximum Male Models, so your eyes glued to next week's Wimbledon-themed outing.
Yeah, but definitely awesome fun matchups during this Forbidden Door as well as Blood and Guts. And then, yeah, just kind of fun week overall. Lots highs and lows for sure.
100%.
All right, so for TFJ0ker.
Thank you very much for joining us on this crazy wrestle-filled week.
And for me, PrettyTony, we thank you for your time and letting us be a part of your day. And remember, be good to yourself, be good to each other, and we catch you next time. Peace.